14th. This for birdie would put him at 5 under.
That looks an extra long job, doesn't it? Longest putter in captivity. Ah, there you are. Give me a bag of crisps and a soft thigh. And all is well, and a little friendly pat. Ain't life grand, eh?
Third shot for Rick Fair.
I think Rick has done exactly what you don't want to do here. Put the ball in the left rough, playing to a tough pin on the left side of the green, and that was about as good as he could do.
'17 and Phil Mickelson. This is his 4th shot, so a problem here for Phil.
I wonder what length of backswing we'll see here. He's one of the... He takes his club back further than almost anybody I've ever seen for short little pitch shots. Great skill and great nerve if you can do it. But concerned about the lie, whether if he puts the club behind it, it'll roll. Perhaps he comes up the bank, and there's a little bit of fringe, and then we're onto the green. Because he might be thinking about landing it on that water cover, that sprinkler head cover. That tangly grass that you can stub your club in very easily, that sort of Bermuda type stringy grass. Amazing. Backswing for that shot was as long as Doug Sanders' backswing for a full drive. What a touch.
Rick Fair at the 12th. This is for birdie.
It's a good effort from there.
In the trees, Bill Glasson at the 18th.
Well, he did well to get it on the green from there. He's left himself a very long uphill putt. 3 under. The leader, John Houston, is 7 under.
Fair with a par, 12. Now to Mickelson at 17, and this would be for par. Estes, this for birdie. And as a result, John Houston holds that 1-stroke advantage. And Bob, we'll take a break at the Mercedes Championships.
Sunday on Beverly Hills 90210, David's got problems.
Is there anything I can do?
Stay out of my way. This will do the trick.
But has Kelly got him sussed?
I think that something's got him. And it's not too much coffee.
Fraternity problems for Steve.
You're a liar, man! Come on, man!
At 8, a new face at Melrose Place.
Nothing like having a man around the house.
And Sid's a bit upset. It'll all end in tears. Beverly Hills 90210, Sunday at 7 and Melrose Place at 8 on Sky One.
We're seeing the second half of the draw coming into camera range on the back 9 at La Costa Resort, Carlsbad in Southern California. That's the splendid scene from the blimp As we see, the conditions perfect today after all the rain of the past couple of days, which affected the first round. There's John Huston's lead. He has now gone on to play the first 9 holes, having started in 10. And some of the players who are in with a chance, if they can improve over the second half of the second round. All of these players are winners from last year on tour. Many of them you see there, first-time winners. Certainly not Greg Norman, but he's 2 over par. He's now on to the front 9. As we now get on to the back 9 and look at some of the players that we'll be following in here.
This is Bruce Litsky's second shot at the 15th. He's playing with a marker. It was an odd number. 35 players won tournaments in 1994. Bruce Litsky won the last one in Vegas. Macumber won just after that, but he'd already qualified for this tournament, so unfortunately Bruce Litsky is playing on his own with a marker. But he's doing very well. And of course, playing on his own with a marker didn't hurt John Huston in Doral. Well, it was when Fred Couples pulled out with his bad back. John Huston went on to win in Doral with a great last round. And it's a good approach shot from Litsky, but he gets a lot of spin on that high faded iron shots. He always gets a lot of spin.
So he is one of the big favourites for the tournament. Fred Couples, beaten in the playoff last year. He's level par. As he now comes into range. Let's see if he can produce some fireworks on the back 9.
'18, it's Glasson, and this is for birdie. Oh. Elkington at the 12th, his third.
Had a beautiful lie, but a terrible angle. That's a good shot, though. About 10 feet by, as close as he could get it.
Now we come to 18, and Glasson loses one here, and he'll move over to the front side. Now, before that, on videotape, Andrew McGee in the bunker alongside the 18th, and this shot, his 4th on the par 4. Yes.
It really is a ridiculous game on occasion, isn't it? It's wonderfully ridiculous. And don't let anyone ever tell you anything different. You should never know what's round the corner.
Now Estes, and this is his second shot on the 13th.
143 yards. Just a big swing with a 9-iron.
A good result, Judy. 6 feet at the most.
Mickelson, the 18th, just off the fairway, isn't he? First cut.
Yeah, it's a good shot from there.
Yeah, Peter, your point, there was Glasson putting uphill for a birdie, winds up with a bogey, and McGee out of the bunker for a par. That's amazing. Now, Elkington for birdie at the 12th. The 11th, here's Fred Couples, and this would be for birdie. Using that old cross-handed putting stroke that we saw down in Jamaica. And we'll take a break at the Mercedes Championships at the La Costa Resort and Spa north of San Diego.
The languid Fred Couples, I wonder if he's going to produce something for us. He seems to have had slightly up and down sort of day at the moment, but do you think the conditions are changing? Do you think the course is drying out and making things slightly easier in the longer holes?
It looks beautiful compared to what we're having to put up with. It's going to gradually dry out, but almost 3 inches of rain on Wednesday. That's going to take a while before that really goes. But they're rolling the greens, which smooths them out, speeds them up. They're going to do everything they can to bring it back to proper conditions.
Now, you mentioned Bruce Litsky playing with a marker. He's the first of the early part of the draw who are now coming into the coverage. Just in case anyone isn't aware of what happens with a marker, perhaps give us some of the details, Peter.
Well, just having somebody play along with you. There's an odd number of players qualify for the tournament, so Litsky's out there on his own. Having somebody play along with him probably helps the rhythm of the game. Instead of if he plays on his own, he's waiting all the time. Hits a couple of shots, has to wait on the next tee. John Huston, when he won at Doral, I think he played 7 holes on his own. Fred Couples had hurt his back on the practice ground, and he asked for somebody to play along with him. And Brian Clark, who had finished his round in the tournament, went out and joined Huston for the rest of the round. He kept on, he said everybody thought, well, where's Fred Couples? What on earth are you doing here? But it helped Huston. He wanted to be more in the rhythm of the game.
Okay, let's go back and see the action.
Mercedes Championships. Johnny Miller a surprise today. Thought he could last 9 holes with those balky knees, and look what he's done. Fred Couples at level par. Now there's Greg Norman, and he is at 2 over par. Norman, of course, has been very, very much in the news. You have read all about the World Tour if you follow this game, and whether or not it's going to make it this year. It doesn't seem likely in 1995. Some folks have said that Greg Norman has a piece of the World Tour, as much as 50%. Jimmy Roberts of ESPN sat down with Greg the other day, and he asked him point blank if he owns part of the World Tour. Let's listen.
I mean, I read in the newspaper that Greg Norman owns the World Tour, and it's Greg Norman's tour, and he's going to be the commissioner, and he dictates the terms and all that with whatever goes on in the internal organization, the administration. But that's totally untrue. I do not own the World Tour. I have nothing to do with the administration of the World Tour. I was asked to come on board from a player's perspective. I just get disappointed when I read in the newspaper and I hear on television when Mark McCormack was down there in Jamaica and said that Greg Norman hired the Montgomerys. You know, that just disappoints me immensely, because that is not the case, and people get an idea that I'm behind this thing, and I'm not behind it.
All right, a couple of things. First of all, the New York Times, December 8th, 1994, Dave Anderson in a column says that there are whispers that you own 51% of the World Tour. True or false?
That's false. I don't own any part of the World Tour. They can go and look that up in the registration when the Delaware Corporation. My name's nowhere near on that piece of form, so that's false.
You said all along that your motivation, your sole motivation, is to play against the top players in the world. Why then didn't you play in the Johnny Walker down in Jamaica, where 19 of the top 30 players were playing? Aside from the 4 majors in the Players' Championship, it's got the best field of any tournament all year long.
Well, that's very easy. It was in July, August, that my wife and I made the decision that I wasn't going to go to Jamaica, because I'd just been in Australia for Christmas the year before, and we wanted to spend Christmas at home. I was arriving back from Australia on December the 5th. So way before this whole World Tour stuff even came to the point, I was never playing Johnny Walker, and I informed the IMG people, I informed the United Distillers, I wrote them a letter, and I can show you a copy of the letter if anybody doesn't believe me now. But that was months before that. So to bring that up at the time was, that was just pure sour grapes as far as I'm concerned, because that had no relevance whatsoever to the reason why I was there.
The Federal Trade Commission has been investigating the PGA Tour since 1991. Do you think that once the Federal Trade Commission rules one way or the other, people will change their song?
That'd be interesting to see. I mean, if the FTC even comes out and starts the investigation. I know when all this stuff hit the fan back in November with the World Tour, they called me up. They flew down from Washington, D.C. to my office and sat down and interviewed me again, which was the 3rd time. and they wanted to hear from my point of view, a player's perspective. So that's just a matter of time to see what happens there. I couldn't really make a comment one way or another on that, but I think there's a few rules that I would personally like to see changed, because the game of golf has really passed by those rules that we play under on the PGA Tour. And that's, well, I think if you play 15 tournaments, which is your guideline to get to the minimum tournaments you've got to play, why can't you go out and play somewhere else in the world without having to get a release? You know, I think there's a few rules with if I go and play in an exhibition match in England, why do the sponsors have to pay the US PGA Tour a rights fee for me to do something outside of the United States? When you have a dream, there's nothing wrong with having an idea or a dream. There's nothing wrong with that, Jimmy. And if people want to be critical and cynical and chop you down for having a great idea, hey, there's a lot of other things in this world that I can go on and do outside of that. So the World Tour will happen, but it won't make one bit of difference to Greg Norman, his family, or his business, or his lifestyle, or playing the game of golf if it doesn't happen. It's just a wonderful idea that I think all of the world would love to see happen.
So there you have it. Greg Norman's defense of those who've said that he owns part of the World Tour. Unlikely that there'll be any World Tour next year, simply because they don't have any players.
Well, an interesting interview there. Greg Norman under some pressure from Jimmy Roberts. And Peter, did you detect that there was a slightly chastened element about Greg Norman after all he's been through in the last few weeks?
Certainly. I don't know whether he really thought there would be a World Tour. The 8 tournaments they came out with right off the bat, you know, opposite the Scottish Open, opposite this, opposite that. I don't know how they thought that was going to happen without an uprising from the European Tour and the American Tour. If this FTC stuff determines that the Tour is acting improperly, then that changes everything. But the Tour's been protecting itself. I don't know whether that's the right word, but the players have been supporting the rules of the Tour, strengthening the Tour over the years, and there hasn't been a problem. One of the reasons that the European Tour and the American Tour is so strong is because they have rules that encourage their players to support their tours, and they've grown.
Okay, though, the point he made that if he comes to Britain to play an exhibition match, the sponsors have to pay the Tour a fee. Do you agree with him or disagree with him that that's wrong?
I agree with the concept of players getting releases from their tours to play elsewhere. I don't know about this paying of the fees.
You mean they have to get permission?
Yes, because a tour has to try and sell. When the American Tour or the European Tour goes out to a sponsor and says, well, these are our players, we can't guarantee everybody's going to play, but these are our players, and if they want to go and play somewhere else, they need to get a release. So that's some assurance to the sponsor that either the guy's going to play or he's going to be sitting at home. He can't go flitting off somewhere else. So it gives some bargaining power to the tours, and it's worked very well. The American Tour is enormous, and the European Tour is catching up.
Do you buy his excuse for not being in Jamaica?
He just decides not to play there. I mean, it didn't really have anything to do with the World Tour discussion, I didn't think.
Yes, but if he can say that he's not playing with the world's best there, I suppose in the World Tour, he could just say that he didn't fancy playing because it was too near to Christmas that time. But more on the World Tour as we go through this year. In the meantime, let's get back and see round 2 of the Mercedes.